I had been traveling in Europe and I realized I wanted to see some of Asia. Whereas in the US, we might just like politely agree. Some of us would state our opinions. In Croatia, it's like if you share something, most likely they're going to give their opinion whether you wanted to hear it or not. Oh, wow. So Georgia is incredible. I really want to go back there. So coming from like kind of a rough Croatian culture into the Georgian hospitality, it was really beautiful. And I ended up just not wanting to leave.
Hi, Sage. Thank you for
Hi.
joining us. Would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sage Brewer. I'm a traveler and I'm from the USA.
Oh, okay. And where do you live now?
Right now, I don't have a home base, but I'm currently in Vietnam and planning to go back to Europe.
Okay, then what brought you over there to Vietnam?
To Vietnam, I had been traveling in Europe and I realized I wanted to see some of Asia. So I had kind of been hopping around the Asian countries and then I went to stay with friends in Thailand. And when my visa expired, I came to Vietnam where I also have family that I'll be meeting.
Oh, okay, great. So you've been a traveler like for how long?
Yeah, I've been traveling since March of 2022. So about over 3 years now.
Okay, that's a long time actually.
Yeah.
So you've been to many countries. You have lots of stories to tell us then.
Yeah, I've been to, in my life, probably around 40 countries, but solo traveling in the last 3 years, about 30. And I lived in like Croatia for a year and a half and then Georgia for about 6 months.
Okay, then where should we start? Which one first?
Oh, do you want to start in the countries where I've lived or where I've traveled?
Yeah, I think the countries that you lived, so you have more experience about those. But also, if you want, we can also talk about the countries that you traveled to.
Yeah, absolutely. So my traveling started with, I studied abroad in London when I was 21, and I realized that there was just so much of the world that I haven't seen. And I had such an appreciation from that trip that I realized I had been really stuck in school for so long, and there was a lot of the world for me to explore. I also had lived with a family from India. They were in the USA, and I just realized from the cultural differences that there was so much for me to understand about different cultures. And in the US, you don't have as much cultural exposure unless you're in like Boston or something. So I went to Austria as soon as they lifted the restrictions. I was ready to go. And from there, I learned about like the Schengen time that you can spend through like 90 days in and 90 days out, essentially. And so I kind of used that and just kept going around different countries in Europe. And my fascination just grew and grew. And I wanted, every time the countries are so close that I just wanted to take that 30-minute trip to see the next country. Then I went around the UK, so like most of all Central Europe and then the UK. And then by the time I got back to Poland, I was just feeling kind of tired. So I went to Croatia and I learned about the digital nomad visa. And at that time, I had also been offered a contract job. So using that, I got the digital nomad visa and I lived for a year and a half in Croatia. So,
Okay, great.
yeah.
And can I ask, what did you study back at home?
What did I study?
Yeah.
I studied health.
Oh, okay, nice. And so let's go back to the Poland. The first was it Croatia, the first place that you stayed there and you got the job, right? So what was the biggest difference you've noticed in Croatia compared to your country, like in the US?
Oh, a lot of differences. One of my best friends is Croatian. I would say one of the first reasons I decided I for sure wanted to try and live in Croatia was how helpful the culture is. And I find that mostly in the Balkans, I guess because of their history of of going through difficult times, that they're really a culture that will step up, even if they maybe don't have a good relationship with you or you're a stranger, they're still going to step up and try and help. And you know, for example, traveling in the U.S., one time my backpack fell open in the airport, and people just walked by, didn't care, and I was like, okay, well, nobody even told me it was opening. But the same experience happened to me in Croatia, and someone was like, let me help you, put this backpack on, like just random person in the grocery store just stopped everything they were doing to help me. And that kind of hospitality is something I really value. Like if I want to live in a community, I want to know that my neighbor has my back if I'm struggling. So that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to live in Croatia. But then, I mean, it's a beautiful country. The people are really interesting to talk to. And I mean, the people there are absolutely beautiful as well. But I will say, as far as like challenging differences, I think the culture is more conservative. So, and it's more tight knit. So when issues happen, everyone will find out by word of mouth. And so you have to kind of be careful about your lifestyle, like dating and stuff, because everyone's going to find out, and everyone's going to assume someone they saw you out in public with, they're going to think that's your husband. And in the U.S., there's just a lot more relaxation about that. People are totally fine with like platonic friendships and things like that, but in Croatia, it's expected that you're probably married by the age of 21 to 25 usually, especially as a young woman. So there's that, and I would say people in Croatia, my friend and I were talking about this, but they have an opinion about everything. Whereas in the U.S., we might just like politely agree. Some of us would state our opinions. In Croatia, it's like if you share something, most likely they're going to give their opinion whether you wanted to hear it or not. so
you get the feedback.
Yeah, you're gonna hear what they think. And if there's anything, you know, I often heard when I was there, if I was like, well, I'm not used to that, and they're like, well, this is not the USA. And they don't really mean that in a mean way. It's just they have so much pride in their country and the different ways that they do things that they're like, well, this is how it is. This is how we like it. So. Oh,
great. One of the questions was that which part of the U.S. are you from?
Maryland.
Okay, so how is the difference about the, like how big is the Maryland compared to the Croatia and all the like commuting type things?
Well, honestly, as a state, I can't compare like measurement wise, but it is a very small state and Croatia is a very small country. So in that sense, they're kind of similar. I would say like from where I'm located, I was from Hagerstown, Maryland, and it takes to reach DC, for example, or Baltimore, it takes about an hour and a half. And I think that's actually, I don't know. Really say that's similar to Croatia because it's like it can be like a 7-hour drive from the north to south of Croatia. Yeah,
pretty big country compared to your state, right?
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, but I think the U.S. and Maryland in particular is more densely populated than Croatia.
Okay. And one of the other questions that normally asked from the people who are living in the other countries is that what do you think about the foods over there compared to your homeland?
Yeah, honestly, their food is good, but I did want to leave because I wanted some different options. I really love Asian food, and it can be quite pricey in Croatia to have Asian food. And I did try, like, they've obviously got a lot of seafood because they're a coastal country. But it didn't really settle well with me. So, yeah, so I prefer, in that sense, I think the US wins. You have a lot more international options. I really love Indian food. I love Middle Eastern food. I love Asian food. And those options just weren't widely available in Croatia.
Okay, good. Then you had a job over there in Croatia and you were living, and it was a really nice country, as you said. And what happened that you decided to move on and go to the other country?
Well, so my job actually was it was a remote job, and it was with a company that where my boss was Dutch. So
Okay.
it wasn't based in Croatia, and it was like a multinational company that I worked for. But they provided me the proof of documentation to get my visa, and yeah, essentially just because my visa was ending at the time that I was in Croatia, I was really sad to leave. I developed a friend group, and yeah, it was sad, but at the same time, I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of ready to go back to other places. So from there, I went to Turkey, I went to Georgia, and I traveled Asia since. And I will say, when I left, I hadn't realized how much I've kind of held back on my personality, because when you're in a new country, especially a conservative country, when you're more artistic and liberal and open to life, that you have to tone that down, because people can be a little like skeptical of that. So I realized that when I was in Croatia, I was so focused on understanding them that I wasn't paying attention to how many people are understanding and respecting me and my lifestyle. So it ended up relationships being kind of a one-way street sometimes.
Yeah.
So if I go back, then, which I actually still have clothes there, so I need to go back. Then I would expect more of people wanting to learn about me and respect my way of living, and not just me being so focused on learning their way of living.
Okay, nice. Then, which country was the next one that you stayed in for a long time after Croatia?
Georgia.
Georgia. So, what happened in Georgia? You arrived in Georgia. Did you take a plane or?
Yeah. I took a plane
Okay.
from Turkey to Georgia. My friend recommended it. And you just want to know about like my experience living there?
Yeah. Well, so, if you arrived there, you just stepped out of the airport. How was the feeling? What was the difference?
Oh wow. So Georgia is incredible. I really want to go back there. Yeah, I was really tired of looking for apartments in Croatia. So when I got to Georgia, I was like, no more apartments. I'm just gonna live in a hostel. Um, so I ended up living in a hostel probably for half the time that I was there. So for about 3 months, I lived in a hostel, which was actually the coolest experience, because if you're a person that can obviously handle sharing a room with like over 8 people, then it works. And also, I developed a really good relationship with the people who ran the hostel. So my first impression was I really loved the foresty feel. Like it's surrounded by mountains and forests, so it's got this fresh. If anyone is watching this and they know about like Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, that's what it was like. It's just like this fresh, crisp, mountainy feel. There's a lot of artists there, so when you walk around, you're completely charmed by the beauty and how people dress. And there's street music, but it's not like the cringy "please stop" street music. It's like really talented artists, and they've got coffee shops. They've got excellent Georgian food. The Georgian wine is just out of this world, and then the people are just so sweet and so hospitable. So coming from like kind of a rough Croatian culture into the Georgian hospitality, it was really beautiful. And I ended up just not wanting to leave for about 6 months. And most nationalities are actually able to live there visa free for about a year.
Okay.
So yeah, I was just like, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna chill, I like it. And so I stayed in this hostel, and I met all sorts of new people, and I went to the local hospital, and I introduced myself, and they let me volunteer there. So I was volunteering at 3 different clinics, and that was just a fantastic experience. So I totally recommend Tbilisi. Yeah, I really loved it, and I want to go back.
It's really funny because you mentioned Croatia. The hospitality is really nice over there, and it's a really good country. Then you moved to Georgia. You called the Croatian rough culture, so it's like
Yeah,
so the level is going like woo.
yeah. Well, it's still true that Croatians are really hospitable. Like it's, if you've ever seen Dating Beyond Borders, the creator of that podcast, she explains that she went into this bar, and the Croatian men, like, I don't know, they seemed like off and unfriendly, but then they bought them all rakia. So it's like they're gonna act like they don't like you or they don't agree with you and they want to argue with you, but then they're gonna invite you in for a drink and please have food and please stay for so it is that kind of hot and cold feel with Croatians, but with Georgians it's just totally friendly.
Okay, nice. So you stayed there for about a year. So it was really nice everything you told about the Georgia, but what was challenging then? There was no challenge?
I have to really think about that. Challenging? I mean, I guess like the wage was pretty low because I was working a job with Georgian salary. Um, the language is challenging. I learned maybe two words, whereas in Croatia I learned a couple of phrases. Um, there really weren't so many challenges. Maybe sometimes there was a limited cuisine, but overall I ended up being really easily able to live in Georgia. And maybe if I stayed longer, I would have noticed more challenges. Maybe there's not enough international people. Mostly Russian, Ukrainian, a few Americans, quite a lot of French people actually came to visit, and a lot of English people. But settling there right now, it's not as much of an international group. So I think again, you can still feel when you're trying to become integrated into a conservative culture, you are very careful about expressing yourself fully because you don't want the wrong impression to come off, I guess.
Okay, so almost a challenge-free country, we can call it, right?
Almost a challenge-free for my experience. Yeah, they were fantastic.
Okay, nice. Then after a year, you moved to the next country. Which countries you traveled after that one?
Yeah, so I've been traveling. I did Sri Lanka for about a month. After Sri Lanka, where did I go? I went to Bali for about a month. From Bali, I went to Malaysia. Malaysia, I went to Thailand for 3 months to stay with friends. And then now I'm in Vietnam now for almost a month.
Almost a month. And do you have any plan to stay here in Vietnam for a long period, or you're moving on somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't plan to stay here. I can only actually stay here for maybe until July. And after Vietnam, hopefully I have like a stable job by then. And I would like to go back to the UK, the Netherlands, or maybe Germany.
What about Nordic countries? Don't you want to come to visit Denmark
I
or
do,
Sweden?
I do. It's very expensive. I've been really looking into if I can get a job there, or at least like maybe an apprenticeship in nursing, or volunteering in the hospitals. I've really spent time calling around and asking about that. I'm not done trying, but the hopes don't look super optimistic right now because they have the language expectation. Even though in Scandinavia they can all speak really good English, they still, because you would be interacting with patients most likely, and they might feel more comfortable speaking in English. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So right now, so it's about, you said almost 3-4 years that you are away from home, right?
Yep.
Is there anything that you're missing from home, back in home? Family, friends, all the connections you've made?
Yeah, my friends and family for sure. Actually, one of my best friends right now, I texted her last night and she's in labor. So, not being there for that is just like, those special moments. But at the same time right now I am budget traveling, and I've been making it without much earning. So I have to be really selective about coming back to the States, but I am thinking about maybe taking a short visit there soon if I'm able to. Mostly friends and family I miss, but they also can come visit me, so I shouldn't bear the full responsibility of going back to see them. What else do I miss? I wouldn't say I miss that much of the cuisine, but I love American music, but I can hear that everywhere. So right now, being in Southeast Asia, I miss cooler weather, but I can find that also in Scandinavia.
And do you have any plan to go back to home, like near future, or?
Maybe if I have to for school, that is one thing I'm looking at, but I'm really trying to figure out how I can get my degree in Europe or the UK and make sure that my credential and licensing could be applicable to the USA as well, ideally.
Okay, great. And for the last question, what kind of mindset or personality you think that helps the most for the people, like they want to move to another country and they want to, start a new journey?
The mindset and personality. Obviously, you have to be really open. You have to be curious because you are the fish in their pond. So you can't expect them to conform to you, but a little bit, of course, it has to be a two-way relationship. Be open to challenges. There's every day I've got something come up that eventually gets really tiring, that like, you need a new sim, you need this and that, you need to. When I was in Georgia, actually, one of the challenges was having mail delivered to me. There were so many taxes on receiving a package, especially if the item in the package is exceeding a certain amount. You have to pay so much money just to pick up your package, and it took me like 3 days going back and forth. What other mindset and personalities? You have to be accepting of kind of maybe going through a period of loneliness and developing new relationships and taking that risk of trusting total strangers and adapting to some different comforts that you won't have, or new comforts, like, you're going to have a new bed to sleep on. Maybe the AC doesn't work as well. Maybe the Wi-Fi is questionable. You have to be really open to a different kind of environment and make sure that your job and school can, either you're notifying them of these issues or it can be kind of adaptable to those things.
Great. Thank you very much for your time and sharing all your stories. It was really nice, actually.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.